Great to be here, everyone. I'm going to jump right into this and share my screen and get into the program. First of all, thank you, UCLA Anderson. Thank you, UCLA Alumni, SIA, for inviting me back. It's great to be here. As you can see, I'm perched above Royce here in a very beautiful spring Westwood afternoon, and just excited to share some of this information with all of you. So, Justin, let me know if that's sharing correctly. And if it is, and you can all hear me, I will.
Yep, you're good, John.
Fantastic. Okay, so SIA's email to everyone was a little bit provocative. This idea of go freelance or go home, or whatever that was. But you know, the idea really here today is to talk in broader terms about the second act career, the concept of the second act career, why it's important, you know, why it is something that's going to you know, be important to your livelihood as you get into this this phase of life. You know, it's a strange period that we're in. The concept of retirement has become very, very antiquated, and we really need to find how to best utilize this period of increased longevity that we have, which also carries with it, even if we have some money set aside or a pension, carries with it some challenges. So the idea of empowering ourselves to engage in a second act career addresses some of these questions. Ageism, our own inertia, and a doubt about the future. So just to kind of imagine for a moment what this is going to feel like, the idea of engaging in the second act career, doing something that you have wanted to do, that you've really spent your entire life preparing for, it is something that is going to leverage everything that has come before, all the wisdom that you've gathered over these years, the people that you have built relationships with, all of the wisdom that you've gathered over the years. And the result is that it will allow you to work as long as you decide you want to work. It will ensure the engagement with not only ideas and practices and commerce, stuff that matters to you, that really sustains you and keeps you young, by the way. But it also allows you to continue to do or to drill down on the work that you love. And I'll be talking about this a lot this evening, the idea of meaning and purpose, which is something that really emerges as we age past 50, the idea of looking back at our lives and looking ahead to the legacy that we're going to leave and figuring out, you know, how am I on purpose? So in going into the second act career, we can say goodbye to all of the difficulties of the broken hiring system that we are dealing with as older workers, rejection and indifference by recruiters and employers, interviews that go nowhere, these euphemisms that are just so painful, the idea of being overqualified for a job that you can do perfectly well, or this idea that, well, maybe you're not quite the right fit, and why do you want to keep working anyway? All of this ageist stuff that we get. And instead, we can look forward to working in careers and jobs that matter to us, where we're really focused on you know, creating something that is of value. And we kind of flip this proposition where we're kind of chasing the opportunity, and the opportunity is really finding us, because we're doing something that matters so much, that we're so behind that we become sought after and experts and appreciated for what it is that we do. And again, it is something that all flows out of addressing our core purpose. So is this just a possibility, or is it a pipe dream? Is it really something that we can do, or is it something that is just, I'm just kind of, you know, spinning, you know, hustling stuff at you this evening? It's really an opportunity to adopt a methodology. And this is something I've been working on since focusing on this area over the last 6 to 8 years. and really coming up with a system to address these issues to get around the ageism and the conventional wisdom around retirement and older careers. And I approached it really as a personal development methodology, not so much a traditional HR career methodology. That's not my background at all. And I really think that, particularly at this age, looking at this from a deeper personal point of view allows us to be much more successful externally, as well as honoring the meaning and purpose quotient that is so important to us. So pivoting a little bit off of David's introduction, and just to further establish some street cred that I have in this area, and why I kind of pivoted to this and gravitated towards this. David, I don't know if he mentioned this, but I come out of the entertainment business. I was a film studio executive and producer, and had a kind of a sabbatical into the technology business in the 90s during the bubble, and then wound up at DreamWorks Animation for most of the 2000s. And being in entertainment, a very volatile business, I had 18 jobs over 35 years. So that's a kind of basically 2 jobs a year. And it's typical for entertainment. It's not so typical for the rest of the economy, although I think what we've observed over the past 10, 20 years is that the rest of the economy has taken on the volatility of the entertainment business because things are changing so fast. And that means that we have to adjust the strategies around employment and business formation. But in terms of the mathematics of my jobs, it's interesting to note that of those 18 jobs, I quit 6, went on to something else. 5 of them ended. They were films that I was producing or consulting deals that came to an end, no harm, no foul. But 7 jobs, I got fired, right? So 7 jobs out of 18, that's 39%. And I like to say that I've been fired 39% of the time in my career. Now, many people will chuckle when I say it that way, and it's intended as a bit of a joke. And it's also intended to try to destigmatize the idea that getting fired is somehow shameful, and to really look at the fact that, as so many people are being downsized or laid off or bought out in their 50s, people take this very, very hard. If you've been in a job or with an organization for a long period of time, you feel like the rug has been pulled out from under you, and it really messes with your sense of identity. But I am here to tell you that it is not shameful, that it is not fatal, that there is a world of accomplishment, success, and gratification beyond getting fired. And we're going to talk about some of the process tonight that you can use to pick yourself up if you are in this situation or floundering in a career transition, and start to put get some traction on the road to recovery. Just a note about today's presentation. No need to take notes. I'm going to give you a URL at the end where you can download a copy of this presentation, which will go into even more detail than what I'm sharing with you tonight. So just relax, put down the pen and the paper, take it in, and we can talk a little bit more in detail in the Q&A at the end. So let's start talking about how we prepare for this second act career. The talk tonight, I'm going to go through 3 large steps, and then within each step, there will be some specific practices, actions, exercises, that kind of thing that you can think about to employ as tools to put the second act career into motion. So the first step, of course, is what do you want to do, right? How do you define that dream job or business? It may be very different from what you've been doing up to now. It may be very similar, but in any event, what I want to encourage you to do is to look at what I call the 4 career elements around this definition process, and then to look at choosing one of 5 career pathways that you can use to step forward. Step 2 is really crucial. It's this idea of establishing your value proposition. Today I think that the key to a career is not so much taking a job or doing a business that you can do. It's really the business that you must do. It's the business that you are called to do, that you are best suited to do. And to drill down on that and figure that out, I want to suggest that there are 3 differentiators that you need to include and define in that value proposition. 5 questions that you're going to want to be able to answer, that are going to be asked of you. And then the one pitch, the elevator pitch, that's going to be able to encapsulate this very quickly and very pointedly. And step 3 is going to be execution, right? What's the game plan? How are you going to get out and make this idea into a reality? And for that, I'm going to suggest 5 ongoing practices that I want you to consider doing, not just until you get the next job or start the next business or consultancy or practice or whatever it is that you're going to do, but that you do as an ongoing series of practices to sustain your career. And then it says 6 actions. There are 5 actions, 5 action steps that I'm going to suggest that you get involved with to get this thing launched and out the door. The first step. So in defining your dream job or business, the distinction at this part of your life is to align this with your authentic self. It really has to be who you are that is expressed through this job, this career, the business that you're doing. You can't just kind of, again, do a job because you can do it or some bridge to something else because it's not going to work out. You really need to take the time to figure this thing out in greater detail. And that's going to help break this cycle of discouragement that I think we get into if we're in jobs that don't work for us, where we feel like, why am I going into this every day? I don't really like it. They don't really get me. Not really making that much of a difference. All of this meaning and purpose stuff that really starts to come to the front in your 50s gets amplified the longer you avoid doubling down on the job that aligns with yourself. Now, you're not alone in this. This is not something that is unique to you. There are many, many thousands, tens of thousands, maybe millions of people, probably millions of people in the boomer and the older Gen X demographic who are going through this very same identity crisis, if you will, around their career and what they're going to do. So you are in good company, and there are solutions. So just as there are 4 elements in the Greek mythological nature, air, earth, fire, and water, I want to suggest that there are 4 elements in your career definition process that you need to balance to make this thing work. And the first one is, again, what do you love and want to do? What is the thing that is going to just inspire you every morning when you get out of bed, knowing that you have the luxury of doing this great work? But you need to couple that with something that's useful. You can't just do this abstract, fun, great thing if no one's going to buy it, right? Because the idea here is to sustain your livelihood and to earn an income and to make an impact on the world. This is not just about navel gazing. This is about doing something that's going to affect and improve the lives and help other people. And then you got to figure out how much you need to earn off of this, right? Everyone is in a different situation at this point in their lives. Some of you may have saved a significant amount of money for retirement, others not so much. Some of you may still have kids in school, or maybe still in high school or college. Maybe you're taking care of parents or relatives. Maybe your kids have moved back in with you. Maybe you're an empty nester. Whatever the situation is, you're going to have your own set of requirements about what you need to earn, whether you're going to downsize your lifestyle and you just need to support that, or whether you want to live full on and you have still a tremendous amount of ambition and drive. At the end of the day, I keep coming back to it, it's got to be meaningful and purposeful for you. This is the wrapper that is the litmus test for all the 3 other elements. So you have to find out what that balance is for you and keep iterating, keep checking it out, keep prototyping this process. And you'll see as we go through the various stages of this methodology that there are multiple opportunities for you to work with other people and work with yourself to figure out if this is going to be true for you. So let's talk about these 5 second act career pathways. Now, there are variations on this, and I've just observed over the past 6-8 years that these are the 5 primary pathways that I've observed people going into as they get into their second act. And the first one, which is surprising to many people, is the idea that you can reinvent your current job. If your current job or your business has kind of gotten stale, if you feel like it's no longer got the same juice for you, you may still be able to reinvent it and to stay in that position without kind of turning your life upside down and having to go for something new. Check it out and see if maybe there is something that you can focus on. Maybe there are a bunch of things that are dragging you down, busy work, administrative work, leadership stuff that you no longer want to do, but you still love the core of the business. Maybe there's a way of shifting and doing that. And you may want to talk to your colleagues, your management about that. And if you have your own business, maybe there is a way of revitalizing that, bring in new partners, promote people from within. There's all sorts of ways of shifting that around. The heartfelt dream job is something that you've wanted to do for years. It's a calling that has been emerging, particularly as you get into your 50s and you really feel drawn to help others, to reach out. This is the heartfelt dream job. It is something that you may want to go back to school to get a degree or certification in. It will probably be something that you need to do a lot of research on, or double down on your relationships with people who are already doing this work. If you're going into a nonprofit, then you may want to do some interning, some part-time work, bridge from your current job to this next job. You get the idea. But it's something that a lot of people find a very, very significant step to take, and an important step where they can make a lot of difference in the world. So millennials talk about side gigs all the time, and I think if you can't be a self-respecting millennial in a job if you don't have a side gig and some kind of internet business that you're doing on the side. So why not older people? Why can't we do this as well? I think it's an opportunity to do something different, to add variety to your life, to earn extra money, possibly to switch over from your main gig and turn your side gig into your main gig. People talk about retirement jobs, although I think that's a bit of an oxymoron, but sure, I get the idea. You're kind of retired, or you're semi-retired, but you don't want to stop working. Maybe there's something that you can do where you're devoting 10, 20, 30 hours a week, and it's easy for you to do. It resonates with what you're all about, and it's fun. So for people who have been out of the business, their business for a while, for all sorts of reasons, caregiving can be a big one. I know a number of people who have spent 5 or 10 years, caring for a parent or a relative, and they've decided to pull back from their professional lives. Other people who have raised families who are now back on the job hunt, want to get into a second act career. The economy is more open to this than I think it has ever been. And I think we all are now much more cognizant of the value that these kinds of sabbaticals or caregiving or home management really represent in the marketplace, that there is significant skills. But I think you have to approach this as a networking exercise primarily, where you really start within the group of people whom you know, who can refer you, who can vouch for you. You may need to do, again, some certifications, some degrees. Focus on what it is that you really want to do, but it is possible, I think, to come back from a period of non-professional activity, let's call it, and reinvent your career this way. And then finally, if you've been a salaried employee forever, and you think you just want to start another kind of a business, it might be a consultancy, it might be something that pivots off of the business that you are currently in, but narrows down a particular subset of that business, or you want to start a business. You want to maybe buy into a franchise operation or something to kind of get out of the routine that you've been doing, out of the corporate grind. This is the other way to go. So just an overview of this handful of different ways of going about it. You may find a particular formula that works better for you, and I encourage you to do that. So let's now move on to step number 2. We'll take another sip of water here so I don't run too dry. And talk about this question of the value proposition. At the end of the day, this is what makes you a unique and compelling candidate. The value proposition is something we never really had to think about. I think as much when we were younger, we had the skills to do the job, and they offered us the job, and we took it, and we did it. But now you're at a different stage of your life. The market is much more competitive, and people are going to be wondering if you've done all these things in your life and you can do all these things, what exactly are you doing now? And how is it beneficial to me, and what does it mean? So it's no longer just about doing a job, it's about delivering results. And this is true for older workers, it's true for younger workers. We're no longer in a work mode where it's about showing up and doing what they tell you. You really have to be strategic and provide value because things are changing too fast. And don't make the mistake of dining out on your experience and thinking that your experience is enough. It's great, and it's going to really help you deliver results, but when you're going into it, don't expect people to be in awe of your experience because you've been in the workforce for 30 or 40 years. First of all, they can't understand the same perspective on your work as you do. They haven't been there. They haven't lived long enough to understand this. You have to direct that experience to address contemporary problems and use contemporary references and not come across as being preachy, which is a problem often that people encounter in interviews. Again, address the current challenge. Don't talk about war stories or, back in the 70s, during the original recession, the oil crisis. I mean, no one cares. So again, the value proposition is what you do, how you do it, and the specific results that you deliver. So let's talk about this idea of 3 differentiators. What is it that you need to focus on in coming up with that value proposition? These are kind of things to remember. The first thing is that your value proposition has to be really narrow. I think I've been alluding to this, but I really want to stress that just because you can do all sorts of different things doesn't mean that you should be promoting yourself as being able to do all those different things. You got to pick one. And I know that's really, really difficult for people to do. People say, no, but I can do this and I can do this. True, and you may eventually get the chance to do both of those things. But for now, people that you're going to be selling to want a niche provider. They have a pain point that they need solved. Be the solution to that pain point. Start there. Define your second act career by this one thing that you are known for. I'm building second act careers over 50 for people. That's my thing. Figure out what that one thing is that you feel most comfortable about, that is really juicy for you, and that you can get behind. And of course, it's got to be useful, right? You've got to do the research. You've got to know your market. You've got to know your customer. You've got to know your client. And you've got to know that what you are selling is something that they want to buy. So this can often be an iterative process of coming up with that value proposition, narrowing it down, testing it out, adjusting it, and then making sure that it's authentic, making sure that it's something that you can actually deliver on, that people say, oh yeah, I get it. Oh, with their background and their experience, oh my God, they're the perfect person to deliver that value proposition. So you want to mix these 3 elements together. So here are 5 questions for your consideration that you most likely will be asked at one point or another in this process by people that you're trying to get hired by or sell to or get investment from. Who do you serve through the work that you do? Who is the end user? Who is the beneficiary of this work? Could be a customer, a client, could be the employer, could be the employees of a company, depending on what it is that you do. You need to figure this out. And you need to talk about the result. You need to have a really clear idea of what that ROI is for the investment that they're going to make in you or your business. And then you need to share a little bit about your secret sauce. How do you do it? What are some of the elements that make up this this process that you're selling, this product, this service, whatever that is. And it's important to talk about your motivation. People want to know why. This goes to trust. If you don't believe that the person you're buying from is really invested in their business and they're doing it because it has deep meaning for them, you probably won't trust them as much. You might not be as inclined to buy from them. And then finally, the logistics. I put this under when. It's when do you deliver? It's what are the deliverables? How do you communicate? What's the timeline? All the logistics. You want to be able to be clear about how that all lays out. It shows that you know your business. Now let's talk about the elevator pitch. We all know what the elevator pitch is. You walk into the elevator. There is the CEO, the chairman, the buyer, whoever he is, and you've got 30 seconds until you get down to the lobby to collar them and give them the quick, persuasive pitch. Well, the first thing you got to do is go to the heart of the problem. It could be a question. It's like, would you be interested in a solution to X? Or I know you're dealing with this particular problem. Would you like to know how to get the answer to it? Or I want to suggest that I've got the answer to that question. And then you don't tell them the how, you actually tell them the result. You tell them the final transformation that you're going to effectuate. If it's, would you like to know how to solve world peace in 6 months? That gets their attention. And then you say, well, at the end of 6 months, there are going to be no more wars. There's going to be a tremendous economy. Everyone's going to love one another. Now, would you like to know how I'm going to do that? And in the third element of the elevator pitch, you give them, again, some of the hints from your secret sauce, some of the hooks about what you're going to want to talk to them in greater detail once they are hooked and inspired and interested in following up with you. So make that elevator pitch compelling, engaging, and inviting. And you're going to have to rehearse this. Even if you never walk into the elevator or you're not doing something where a real elevator pitch is going to be required, I would encourage you to practice this, to define this, to practice this, work this out with colleagues, because it helps you better understand your business. It gives you greater ease, facility, fluency with the business that you are shifting to and trying to get off the ground. All right, so let's move into the game plan, to step 3, and talk about how to manifest your second act. We'll talk about the 5 practices to build your development strength. It's kind of like your muscle building exercises. And then the 5 actions that are going to actually get this off the drawing board and into the real world. So why these 5 practices? Well, the hiring process is broken. I think I mentioned this at some point at the top of the presentation. Recruiters have 6 or 7 seconds to look over a resume. It's impossible to get called in for an interview. You need to take back control of this process and have some methodology that you can rely on. And ageism is a big problem. It's out there. You're going to find in your 50s a different response in the marketplace, the job marketplace, than you had in your 30s and your 40s. So this is about building positive career habits for yourself. Something that when you have discouraging results on the outside, you know that you have a proven system on the inside that is driving you forward. So the first of these practices I advocate is for a daily intention journal. 1 handwritten page per day. You're writing a stream of consciousness, whatever it is that comes up for you. It's an opportunity to build a dialogue with your inner self, to set a daily intention for what you want to happen during the day, whether it is an actual task that you want to get done, a way of being that you want to model. It's a way of clarifying whatever is coming up for you in your life and surfacing it so that you can act on it. Practice number 2, reframe obstacles. If you find yourself saying things like, oh, that's not who I am, or that's not the way the world works, and you've got some pretty clear ideas about what's what, I would encourage you to think about this more closely and to question your established beliefs and habit patterns, because they may have worked for you in the past, but they may not work for you now. This is your opportunity to really do an assessment of that. And then to use your creative imagination to think of new pathways forward or new pathways around the perceived obstacles. Practice number 3, recruit your BOD. Your BOD is your board of directors. Every company has a board of directors, so why shouldn't you? It's an opportunity to bring together a group of people who are invested in your success, who can support you in making critical decisions. You can tap into their relationships and their networks to be introduced. This will help you make your plans more effectively because you'll get the feedback you need. And it will build trust and self-confidence because you'll have the opportunity to really bounce these things off your board. These are people you respect. They have their own accomplishments, and it will just make you feel a lot more secure and positive about the work that you're doing. A very practical aspect of your career now is LinkedIn. You just can't ignore LinkedIn. 600 million people around the world, 120 million people on the platform every day. You really need to make this a resource. It's much more than your online resume. It's really a marketing and a professional branding opportunity for you. So just some quick ideas about how to fill in that profile. And there's plenty of help on the platform itself, but just some tips about this, things that people miss. Your headline is not your job title. It is your skills, it's the values you represent, the results that you deliver. It's how you're going to get searched. People are going to search for these keywords, and you want your keywords to be all through your profile, but certainly in your headline. Your about section, which used to be called the summary section, is extremely important. It needs to be about who you are, not what you do. This is vital to understand. This is not an opportunity to just take the brief summary from the top of your resume and stick it in the about section. Write a story, write a little narrative in 2,000 characters that talks about what your motivation is in doing the work that you're doing. What was the inciting incident that inspired you to do this work? What are some of the top successes that you've had that really have been most meaningful to you and the people that you've worked with? And the third element is aspirational. What do you want to do with this in the future? Where are things going? How do you want to interact with the way business is moving in the future? Your experience section, that's your resume. That's where you put your bullets, the numbers, all the results. And here's a controversial piece, which we can discuss later, that everyone asks me, which is, do I put my dates and my age in my resume and on my LinkedIn? And a lot of career coaches say, leave your dates off. Leave anything older than 10 years off your resume. And yeah, you have to summarize. You have to get your resume into 2 pages. On LinkedIn, you can be as long as you want. I encourage you to put everything onto your LinkedIn, and I encourage you to put your dates. Here's the deal. If they're ageist, they're not going to hire you. They're going to find out how old you are, and they're not going to hire you if they really don't want an older person on the job. So anything that you do to try to hide that is going to ultimately be fruitless. And then, by the way, do you want to kind of fudge your way into a job where they don't appreciate you for your wisdom? That is an incredibly discouraging thought, that you could be kind of going to work every day basically in a lie. So put that age, put the date on the LinkedIn profile and on your resume. It's a way of weeding out the people who are not going to be appreciative of what you have to offer. We can talk more about this later, but I've said my piece. Practice number 5, build a career relationship funnel. So borrowing on the idea of a marketing funnel, you want to organize and categorize and prioritize all of the people in your Rolodex so that you can best use them to your career advantage. So your biggest group is at the top of the funnel is your silver group. These are all the potential contacts you have who could be at some point helpful to your career, but may not be helpful right now. Your gold group, the biggest group, is the group that actually is the actionable group. These are people you know, people you've worked with, people you currently work with, contacts, vendors, suppliers, clients, friends of clients, all of whom have some ability to help you with your career. And because career building is two-way, networking is two-way, you want to be able to help them as well and refer them and give them articles and information that'll help in their career. And finally, your platinum group, which includes your board of directors. These are the trusted, closest advisors that you want to be very close to. These are the people you talk to every week, your close friends and advisors who are going to be with you through the dark nights as you go through your career process and get to the other side. So let's talk about the actions. Why the 5 actions? Two things. You need an accountability system, right? You can't just have these great plans and not have a system to keep yourself on track and to keep yourself true to your commitments and your intentions. And also, as you'll see, these are really action steps that put you in contact with people one way or another, because at the end of the day, it's all about the people. It's all about the people around you in your network, in your current job. That's how you're going to advance, is through your interactions and connections. And it's about what you can control. There's so much in this process that you can't control. Decisions that are made that have nothing to do with you. This is something that you can do every day. And regardless of the results of the work that's going on the outside, the rejections from the interviews, calls not being returned, whatever it is, you've got your process. And it's these opportunities for interaction that are going to lead you to where the results are going to be. So we'll go through these really quickly and then get through this and get to Q&A. Whoops. Oh yes, action number 1. So constructive feedback. So I really encourage you to do this. This is a really great process. Everyone who does this loves this. Take 3 to 5 close advisors, friends, family even, and sit them down for an hour and get the constructive feedback. This is the stuff that you need to know about yourself, your relationship, what you're good at, what you're bad at, what you need to improve, what you need to work on. It's like, stop interrupting people when they're talking. Whatever that might be, this is an opportunity to figure it out and to triangulate from the different people who are all giving you the input, and you're going to learn surprising things about yourself. So be open. Don't react. Take it in. Consider it. Think of this as a research project that's going to really move your career process along. Number 2, connect with your people. So spreadsheet. Get out your spreadsheet. Start making a list of the people that are in your world that you want to maintain and build relationships with. Keep adding to that spreadsheet. Again, the networking process is mostly about you giving to them. So you want to be thinking about, what can you do? What article did you read that is right for so-and-so? What event coming up might be appropriate for this person? Who did you meet this week who might be someone you want to introduce to someone else? You want to do a similar process with your target companies. Start building a spreadsheet with the information that you're doing to research the companies that you feel drawn to, that are doing the work that you want to be doing, that you like their mission statement, you understand the culture is really resonant with what you believe in, and start figuring out how you can network your way into those companies. Or you might discover companies that are similar. You might discover that some element of what you do and part of your value proposition is not being addressed. Maybe that's a way in, because that's a pitch that you can give them about how they could be upping their game. Social media is an important part of this. LinkedIn, obviously, you really have to have that LinkedIn profile for your professional branding and presence, but you also might want to start a Facebook business page to promote the work that you're doing. Or maybe Pinterest is a platform that's going to be good for you. If you're in retail, Instagram and Pinterest are phenomenal opportunities to get the word out about your business and to interact with your customers. So figure out what platform works best for you, do some research, do some engagement, but I would encourage you to be not just a lurker, but an engager on these platforms and meet people, talk to them, make your opinions known. But one important distinction, make these platforms for business only. Don't mix your personal with your business. Keep your message consistent. If you have a personal rant or cause or point of view, I would encourage you to use your personal Facebook page as the center, as the hub for that information, but don't mix those two because they're not related. The accountability plan. Get a calendar, could be a wall calendar, you could do this on your phone, do this on your computer, and start blocking out over the next 30 days, what are you going to do? Are you going to check in with people every day, twice a week? Are you going to work on your value proposition, your elevator pitch? Are you going to do research on companies 2 days a week, 1 day a week? What's it going to be? Plan out the next month and figure out how you can be accountable to the ideas that you have committed to in creating your plan. Now, most of all, I think what's most important about this is that you have to make this your experience. I've thrown out a lot of ideas here. They are expanded on even further in the ebook that you'll be able to get at the end here. But you've got to make this yours. If there's something that doesn't work for you, great, don't use it. If you want to modify it and make it ring a little bit more with what feels comfortable for you, great. But don't feel that you have to be locked in to this particular methodology. Find the methodology that works for you, and don't let people pull you off your center. Well-intentioned people are going to say, well, that's all very nice. Oh yeah, you were at that UCLA thing, but you really should talk to this person, this company. They would be very interested in you. Maybe, maybe not. Just be sure to stay on your track and focus as much of your time as possible on developing that inner focus and that inner certainty around who you are, what you offer, what your value proposition is, what you can do, and how you can get it out there. So at the end of the day, what does it look like when you've gone through all this, when you're in that second act career? Mostly you're in charge. Perhaps for the first time in a long time, every day it's your business, it's your world. Even if you are in a salaried position, you're doing it because it's based on your value proposition. It's based on what you have to offer. They hired you because of that pitch that you brought in there. And so they may be paying you a W-2, but you're basically a consultant, right? And you want to be able to, have this lifestyle where it's really all about what you provide. So the good news and the bad news is that you're more responsible for yourself here. And you have to take the lumps along with that because you're kind of like the owner of the business of one. But the good news is that you're ready. And the Kauffman Foundation does these periodic surveys of entrepreneurs in America. And what they keep coming up with is that older entrepreneurs are twice as successful generally as younger entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs 40 and 50 are twice as successful as entrepreneurs under 30. So the whole Silicon Valley kid startup thing is a real myth. It really is the older business starters who do better because obviously you have the experience. You've been there, you've done that. So you get to decide whether you're going to continue on as a hard-charging 60-hour-a-week guy or gal, or whether you're going to take a step back and do something that's maybe 10, 20 hours a week. Maybe it's going to be online, maybe it's going to be retail. Whatever it is, you get to decide what kind of lifestyle you want to live in this phase of your life. Again, back to those 4 career elements. What works for you? What do you need? What's really most important? And at the end of the day, it's all about, again, meaning and purpose. It's those core, deeply spiritual drivers at this point in your life. You're thinking about your legacy. You've done all of this stuff. You've kind of built your life and your career. You've got all of the heavy lifting behind you. Now is the time to really appreciate your life, appreciate what you've done, and try to do more and do better in your final stage. So just a little bit of a kind of a wrap up on me and what I do. This transition for me to education and training started after my tech startup blew up at the end of the bubble, and I pivoted into this education focus at DreamWorks Animation in 2003, and got my MA in spiritual psychology at University of Santa Monica in 2005, which was an amazing experience. And then when I left DreamWorks at the end of 2009, Carnegie Mellon picked me up, and I've been working with them, co-running a graduate management program for them in entertainment management sector. And it's the TEDx talk in 2012, and you can find this linked from my website, that really kind of got me focused on this question of second act careers and what are we going to do over 50 when ageism and longevity are conspiring to keep us down. So the career coaching started up in around 2014, and then the book that David mentioned, 2017, and started with the ACT teams in 2018. That kind of brings us up to the present. And now it's over to you. Your next step is to engage in this process, and if you're on the call, it's probably because this is something that has some resonance and interest for you. You may be in the midst of a career transition, or you may be contemplating that. But one of the interesting stats about this is that from the surveys that I've seen, about 70 to 80% of people who make a midlife career transition are satisfied and happy with the results. So the chances of you succeeding in making this transition are high. So I encourage you to connect with me, whether it's through the website, LinkedIn. Please consider taking a look at the book. It's available paperback, ebook, or on audiobook on Amazon. And it's been great to spend this time with you. I hope this has been helpful. I look forward to interacting with you in the Q&A. And as promised, here is the link to the ebook, which again is everything that was in the presentation and more. So I'll leave this on the screen for a few minutes. Now you can pick up your pen and write this down. And as Justin is going to mention, this will also, the URL will also be in the follow-up email that you're going to get. So if you don't have a chance to write it down, you will get it in the email. So I'm going to stop the share and take another sip of water, and we'll get to a Q&A.
Thank you, John. That was amazing. Really, really useful information and insights. And again, just really appreciate you being here. And thank you all for joining us tonight. So first question, John. Does taking on a second act typically mean a reduced salary or income? This person said, I like my current income and I'm hesitant to take a pay cut.
Yeah, this is a great question. And statistically, it is true that up to now, I wouldn't say it's necessarily the second act career, but let's say that statistically, people make less money in jobs where they have been rehired after a layoff over 50. So yeah, this is a statistical issue, but I think if you want to be a slave to statistics, okay, that is one data point in the equation. But I think that if you are going to, well, two things. One, if you're going to come up with a compelling value proposition, which really addresses a viable commercial need, then you're going to get paid on the merits of what that value proposition is going to deliver. The other thing is you might not necessarily need to make the same salary that you made when you were in the midst of your career, when the kids were in college. So again, in looking at those four career elements, your needs may change over time. You may decide that you want to downsize and have a simpler life. at a certain point, and you're not going to need as much money. So I think there's a dance around this, and you can't look at it exclusively in terms of one element.
Great, thank you. Okay, second question is, this person says, I am 59 and I'm very familiar with the world of startups, but have not built my own business from scratch. What are the key traits that you have seen in those that have been successful in taking this approach?
Well, I think this is a question that is really not only something for older workers to consider. I think this is just generally the startup, the world of startups and the entrepreneurial mentality. So I don't think there's anything particularly different about doing a startup in your 50s than doing it in your 30s or 40s. I think you're better equipped in your 50s to do it because you have that knowledge. I think if you've been on the outside of that process, you're familiar with it, but you haven't done it yourself, and you have a compelling idea, then you go through the usual ways of putting that together. You get your business plan, you get your advisors, you determine the viability of the business. You start to get seed capital. I mean, all the stuff that you need to do.
Great, thank you. Yeah, we actually had a second act session last year that was about startups and demystifying that whole world. And like you said, I think it's more accessible to people in an older generation than people sometimes think.
Yeah, I mean, I would also say that if you, I would guess that a significant proportion of angel investors are older investors who have come off of successful careers in various sectors. So they're going to hopefully be more receptive to you as an older entrepreneur because they're going to recognize that you have the chops and you're going to speak very much the same language as opposed to kind of having to, the investor as the adult in the room. So something to consider.
Right, great point, thank you. Okay, next question is, this person says that there are two types of barriers that I've come across in my job search / career reinvention. One is that I'm considered overqualified for the job, too much education, a PhD in this case, or too many years of experience. And two, I don't have the right experience, quote unquote, that is narrow and industry specific job history. So what strategies do you recommend we use to address this problem basically throughout the whole process, like before applying, during the application process, and during the interview?
Right. Well, what I'm going to say might upset you. And that is that it sounds like they could be right on both counts, that you need to apply to different jobs and you need to leverage the skills that you have and take the feedback, right? Which might be painful. Very often when people are, let's say, accused of being overqualified, it's because they look at your credentials and they go, oh my God, you're a PhD, what are you applying this job for? And you say, well, I can do this job. Why won't you let me do this job? They're intimidated. They're intimidated by all the experience, by the credential. And they're thinking, why is this person applying for this job? So you have to make a case, and this goes back to value proposition, you have to make a case for why all of the credentials and the intimidating background that you have actually make you the perfect candidate for this job. It all goes back to that value proposition. And in terms of not having the right skills, maybe there's skills that you need to go out and get. But I would ask you to take a further step back and go back to the beginning and think about what is it that you really want to do? Do you really want those jobs that you're applying to? Why are you applying to those jobs? What is your motivation in doing so? Is it because that's what you really want to do? Or is it because you think, okay, well, with my background and the skills and the PhD and whatever, this is what I should be applying to? Or because the jobs look good on paper? I really would question your process in selecting the jobs that you are going out on. And I would really encourage you to flip the whole thing around and start talking to your board of directors and have some feedback meetings with trusted advisors and get people to give you the constructive feedback about what they think you should be doing or could be doing, or why in this particular case you're getting this kind of feedback. So I don't mean to push you into the corner, but on a certain level, yeah, I'm pushing you into the corner because I think that that's what you got to look at.
Great, thank you. Yeah, that's super helpful. You got to, it sounds like anticipating that employers are going to have those questions about, are you really dedicated and passionate, are going to come up a lot. So thank you. Are there any job or career websites geared towards seniors and retirees that you know of?
There are a lot of them. There's AARP has a clearinghouse of these websites. Retirement Jobs is one that I subscribe to kind of check out and see what's out there. But I want to caution you on this because this is getting into the old mindset. The old mindset is find a job position that you think you can do and apply to it. And then, by the way, you're not going to get a call back. So the methodology here is really to start on the inside and to get the job, not because you're cruising the job boards, but because you're talking to people who are doing the kinds of things that you want to be doing and getting their real world experience about what their business is like, who's hiring, what are the gigs, what's the preparation and the training that you need, is this right for you? You really need to do this from a different angle. You need to get out from behind the screen that we're all on much too much of the time and get face to face with people, well, which is now going to be probably on a screen, but to get that interaction going and kind of expand your mind beyond the limiting beliefs you have about what you can do, about what skills may or may not be portable from your previous career to your next career. I'll just say I had a client once who was doing what I call job board porn. He was really unfulfilled in his job. He's an engineer, and he was working for a engineering consulting company, and just felt miserable every day. Didn't like the direction the company was going, the work that they had him doing, blah blah blah. And I said to him, look, you're not, and he's applying to, this is a guy with an MBA and an engineering degree, and he's applying to positions that are listed as having, requiring 5 to 10 years experience. So he's not getting anywhere. No one's calling him back. He's completely overqualified. And the work we did was to get him to focus back on the job that he was doing. And he was someone who reinvented his own job at his own company and started putting together ideas that he had that were kind of personal ideas about different topics in engineering. And he brought that back into the company, did an elevator pitch to the CEO at an opportunistic moment, and got tasked with a whole new initiative. So again, bring it back inside. Don't rely on what you're seeing on the outside.
That's such a great example. And that's a great term too. I haven't heard that one yet. So
Job board porn?
Yeah. Okay, this next question is a little bit longer of a setup. So this person says, I've had a long career in the market research industry, and I would like to return to full-time employment with a company. This person's done both employment with the company and as a consultant. This person said, I'm open to staying in my field or possibly shifting to a different, more creative side of my industry, or even something else entirely. While I can tailor my resume according to a specific job or company, I can only have one LinkedIn profile. And you touched on this a little bit, but the question is, what do you recommend for an online profile for someone in my situation? How would you convey interest in staying in one's industry at a mid-senior level versus interest in switching industries for the right opportunity?
Okay, very, very dense question, but it's a great question. And I get this a lot about the LinkedIn profile and how do I do how do I capture all of me in my LinkedIn profile? And I just had this, and David will appreciate this, I just had this conversation in the last Anderson ACT team that we did, where one of the participants on in the program was a woman who had 3 different areas that she was focused on. One was kind of her day job. The other was a nonprofit focus that she had, and then the third was some other interest that she was also very active in, that was income producing. My headline about this is that you need to think about your career from a portfolio perspective. That everything you do is part of the authentic you, right? So you want to be able to express all of those elements, and the LinkedIn profile is a great place to express those and to balance those out, and to talk about how whatever it is that you do in those multiple areas contribute to one another. So you create this synergistic picture of yourself as a whole person, and you balance it in terms of what the reality is. Where are you making the most money right now? What is the relationship between your income sources and your passions, and the areas, or the one area, again, try to narrow it down. So if you're going to make a jump from your current situation, you want to commit to a very specific niche that you're going to go to. And if you want to protect the longevity of your current job, and you kind of don't want them to feel like, oh my God, he's trying to leave us and go do something else, what I found is that there's often a way that you can integrate that new focus in some way as a part of the outreach or the job description that you currently have. So if you're in marketing and there is a particular subset that you think you might want to go into, a niche marketing area that you want to jump to, make that a specialty within the umbrella of your current job, and begin to refine that and develop relationships in that area that you can bring back as business development for your current company. And then you may find that you're building a bridge to this next iteration of your career, and you jump to an entirely different company. Maybe you start a consultancy in this particular niche area and your prior company is your first client. All sorts of ways of doing this. But while I would encourage you to adapt the paper resume to emphasize the background that most appeals to a specific prospect that you're submitting to, you want to have all of it there on LinkedIn, and give it, if not equal weight, then well, let me put it this way: that for the company that you're applying to, you drill down on the context. It's like, here's why this particular thing applies to you guys. That's a ham-handed way of doing it, but you get what I'm saying, right? So that's the differences that you're doing in the resume. You're focusing on the things that are going to be most interesting to them. But let me just say something about the resume. The resume is not the way you're getting in the door. You're getting in the door because of your LinkedIn. And the resume actually is the piece of paper that you bring with you and that you leave behind after the interview. And they use that internally as the marketing document to discuss whether or not they're going to take you to the next round. That's what the resume is for. Otherwise, everything is on LinkedIn. So, remember that we're beyond this idea of submitting a resume and a cover letter and expecting to hear back. Because if you're going to get through the scanning machine and you actually get to someone's desk with that approach, the first thing they're going to do is going to go to your LinkedIn. So you got to make sure your LinkedIn is compelling. And as you'll read in the ebook, I talk about this a little bit in more detail, or maybe it was in a blog post today. They want the full picture today. They want to know you as the whole person. They don't want to know you as this dry corporate drone, senior executive with 30 years experience, so managing large teams and driving our. Come on, get out of that. And by the way, for all of you, if any of your materials refer to you in the third person, change it. It's got to be first person. You're doing this. Everyone knows that you're writing it, so make it in the first person. So be the whole person on LinkedIn and be accessible, be open. That's why the about section, I'm going on too long. I'm sorry, guys. That's why the about section and having that little career narrative about why you do what you do, the things that have really been the most amazing aspects of your life and where you want to go, that's going to get their attention. That's what's going to get them to want you to come into the office and meet, because you've inspired them with who you are. End of rant.
Loved it. And actually, sticking with LinkedIn just for one more quick question is, this person said, I've never shown my photo on LinkedIn for privacy reasons.
No.
Though now I feel I might stand out in a bad way, as most people have their photo clearly displayed. Should I be worried about an underlying bias because I don't have a picture on my profile?
Yes. Put your picture up. Get a friend to take a smiling, well-lit, professional picture and put it up, because they're going to pass right by you. And I will make the assumption that you have less than 500 connections on LinkedIn. You want to have more than 500 connections on LinkedIn. You want to be in that 500 plus distinction on LinkedIn. You need to make LinkedIn your primary career platform, professional branding hub. And that starts with your picture.
Awesome.
And I'm not sure, I don't mean, no disrespect. I'm not sure what your concern is about privacy here. It's just a picture of you. I'm sure there are plenty of pictures of you all over the internet that people have taken, maybe that you've taken, that are on your Facebook or whatever. But I think LinkedIn is probably amongst the safest sites in terms of privacy. And I don't know what you're thinking could happen by having your picture on the site. And again, there are 600 million people on this website, most of whom have pictures.
Great, thank you. Okay, this person says, I started at UCLA when I was 19. I'm 53 now. I have a BA in English and a professional certification in nonprofit management. This person is wondering, they said they feel like a stranger sometimes when they try to access services through the Career Center. And they're wondering if you have any tips for how to get the most out of engagement with the Career Center.
That is a question that I can't answer because I don't work in the Career Center. I'm not part of this structure. I would just say, good for you for being on the call and for taking your own initiative. I think the more you do generally to help yourself, the easier it's going to be for UCLA to help you. I would say, from what I know about Anderson, and I'm sure this is true for the UCLA Association at large, and Justin, you can help me out on this, is there are directories of alumni, and they are searchable. Is that correct?
Yeah, and
Right?
I would, plug UCLA One definitely in that regard. It's, like LinkedIn, but it's UCLA only. So that's a great resource.
Yeah, I mean, your greatest opportunity is to network and to have an alumni association that is active and where there is a current directory of alumni that is broken down by industry and title. That's an amazing resource, and you need to avail yourself of it. We all need to use our alumni connections more than we do. We just don't think of it. I find this at Anderson and doing the ACT teams with Anderson is people just don't realize what an amazing resource Anderson is for its own alumni if they will only avail themselves of it. So I would challenge you to use what's up there and use the kinds of resources that coaches like me are offering to people in terms of methodology and philosophy about career development and career planning. You can do a lot of this yourself and get tremendous results.
Thank you. And I'm sure David would have some words to add to that. But so next question is, what research have you seen or looked at that shows what typical reasons would be for employers not hiring people in their 50s or over 50 years old? Is it not wanting to compensate for, pay them more for all the experience they have relative to a younger candidate? Is that still the main reason, or has there been different reasons that have emerged recently?
That's a good question. There are all sorts of reasons. Nobody really will talk about it because it's kind of illegal to discriminate on the basis of age. So it all comes down to myths. And cost is a myth because it's really not about the cost. It's about the value that you provide. So the myopia here in corporate America is shocking. And at some point, I think companies are paying the price for this. IBM, just one bad actor that comes to mind, was outed a few years ago for these horrific practices of downsizing people in their 50s and then rehiring them as consultants without benefits at lower rates. And it was a terrible, terrible practice, which was exposed by ProPublica in a big research study about 3 years ago. And of course, IBM is in trouble and just recently switched over their CEO. So unfortunately, corporate America, we're going to get it on the chin. Older people are going to get it on the chin on these mistaken beliefs that we're too expensive, we're out of touch, we get sick more often, which is untrue, and all we want to do is just kind of like loll around in the job and then retire, which is also untrue. The truth is that older workers are more dependable, they show up more, they don't have as many distractions in their lives, they know why they're on the job because they appreciate the value of the work, all sorts of reasons, and there are a lot of stats and reports on that. So in terms of why employers don't want to hire older workers, it's ageism, pure and simple. It is a mistaken belief that older people should be put out to pasture, that they're feeble-minded, that it's time to retire, and they just haven't bothered to think about their bottom line and the value that older people can bring in.
Thank you. This person asks, especially if you're trying to maybe switch industries, is an internship a good way to get experience in a new industry, and what's a good way to go about doing that?
I think it's excellent. I think we've all seen the film The Intern, which is kind of like the poster child expression of that idea. And how you go about doing that is going to be industry and company specific. But I think it actually goes back to this question of building relationships and building your network, because you may not necessarily find these opportunities if you look for them online or on the company websites. I think you really need to figure out first what it is that you want to do and start building your network around that value proposition and career focus. And you're going to start to meet people and see opportunities from that outreach. And the possibility of an internship or externship or whatever it's called will come out of that.
Great, thank you. This person asked, or they said of your presentation, it was very organized and had great tips. But their question is, what inspired you to be a career coach?
Well, interesting question. I realized that in all of the work that I had done in entertainment, it was always about casting, one way or another. And business is all about casting, in the sense that it's the Warren Buffett line. It's hire the best people and then let them do their job. So in entertainment, as a producer, studio executive, either on the line or in the office, you're always dealing with talent. The business runs on talent, and what's the best mix of talent for a particular project. So I think I kind of came up in the industry with that mindset. And I was drawn into education because, and I think this is the meaning and purpose quotient past age 50, because that just felt like where I needed to go to take the experience and the insight of working all these years and starting to give it back and apply it back. And this is what I was doing at DreamWorks. And then moving out of DreamWorks, I was not necessarily focused on being a career coach. I was really focused more on education and training. And then in the wake of the recession, I began to think about, oh my God, what are we going to do, right? I think I mentioned this briefly in the talk. We're living longer. Social Security is under threat. Defined benefit pensions are over. We are subject to the whims of the market. Our 401ks, our homes are all roller coastering up and down depending on the market. There's no security for us in retirement. So what are we going to do? And I did the TEDx talk in 2012, and people were saying to me after the talk, oh, so do you coach? I'm thinking, oh, well, maybe I should start coaching. And it just kind of one thing led to another. Thank you for asking the question.
Okay, we may have time for, I think, one, maybe two more questions, but next question is, how do you recommend pursuing a dream job in which you have no experience and no contacts?
Well, I would start off with making sure that there is a market for that dream job, right? And start with that value proposition and start testing it out. Making sure that it's something that you can do. There's an argument for why you're the person to do it, and then start your research. Start meeting people. It's like the last question about how did I become a career coach? How did I start focusing on this area? I started doing reading. The first thing I think I did was set up Google alerts to send me articles about retirement and Social Security and ageism. And I just started reading. I started researching. And then I started participating online in LinkedIn groups about this. And I started meeting people. I started engaging. And you begin to build up a cadre of people who are either fellow travelers on your level, above you, below you, on the path. And then you start to figure out through this feedback, and again, board of directors, get a board of directors who can help guide you through this process. And they don't necessarily have to be part of that business that you want to go to, but maybe you'll meet someone who you'll get along with and they'll get along with you, and you say, hey, I don't know too many people in this business, but can I give you a call every few weeks to just run some stuff by you? So you have to feel your way along, but again, it's about building relationships.
Thank you. And
good luck.
Yeah, yeah. And I think we'll wrap it up with this question. What are some, maybe one or two examples of questions you would recommend for the board of director feedback sessions from one stakeholders?
Good question. So I actually have a list. I should have it handy, but I don't. I actually have a list of 9 questions. I wish I could bring that up quickly, but it'll take too much time for me to find it. So the questions are you comfortable being a mentor? Do you believe in the work that I'm doing? And are you willing to spend some time, once a week, once a month, advising me and supporting my initiative? Do you believe in that initiative? So I would start there and see what their response is. But then I also think you want to approach people whose character you respect. And one of the questions is, how do they treat the people who work for them? How do they treat wait staff in a restaurant, right? You want people who resonate with your values. If you don't respect, how they conduct themselves in business, if they don't have a stellar reputation in business, you probably don't want to be in business with them. So look to their character as well.
That's an excellent point. I love that you mentioned that. And okay, I think that's, unfortunately, we're not going to get to every question. There were many, many really great questions, and thank you all for submitting and writing into the Q&A. If you have a question that did not get answered, please feel free to send it to the Second Act email address that's in the email you received with the webinar link, and we will do our best to answer it for you. Or hook up with John, who can help us answer it as well. So I wanted to say thank you, John, so much for being here. Really, really great insights. I love the presentation, and just can't thank you enough for doing this and being here. So thanks again.
Well, thank you, Justin, and just a shout out to Sia and to David. Thank you both for giving me this opportunity to speak to the UCLA community again. It's great. I'm a big fan. I'm kind of, I hope I'm considered an honorary Bruin, but it's great to be here, and anything I can do to help the Second Act program and the UCLA Alumni Association, I'm all for it.